Alright, sweet. So first we're going to break this into different sections. But first of all, what's y'all's favorite story in the Bible? Just shout it out. David's. Alright, but love it. Today we're going to read about a story about this father who was told to kill his son by God. So we're going to start in verse 1 and 2. Sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said to him, Abraham. Abraham replied, Here I am. Then God said, Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you. So first of all, let's get a little history lesson going. First of all, Abraham had been waiting for so long for a son. He first got promised a son when he was 75 years old. Is anyone in here even 70? Actually, no, don't raise your hand. But he was first 75 years old when he first got promised. And then he finally had the son at 100 years old, and Isaac popped out. And so that was a big, big thing for him, because God promised him that he would have many generations, and it would number the sand next to the sea and the skies and the star. It was going to be this huge multitude of children and children and children, and it was going to start Israel. But what we have to learn is, why would he leave so abruptly the next morning? Because it says, let me read it again. Sorry, I lost my spot.
You good?
But yeah, Abraham had waited 25 years for this son who was supposed to come and start this generations, like I just said. Alright, let's read 3 and 4. 3 through 6, sorry. Early the next morning, Abraham got up and loaded his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place God had told him about. On the third day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his servants, Stay here with the donkey, while I and the boy go over there. We will worship, and then we will come back to you. Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he carried the fire and the knife, as the 2 of them went on together. All right, let's unpack that real quick. Firstly, as we see, it literally says, early the next morning, Abraham got up and loaded his donkey. That means Abraham went out to go to the mountain to go sacrifice his son. Why would he wait for this 25 years for his son and then go so abruptly the next morning? That's something straight from God that we don't even realize, and I feel like we totally glance over it. And then another thing that we see is, with all this, it says, they have the wood for the offering, okay? As it says, when he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering. So they have the wood, all right? We can all agree on that. They have the fire that they're going to start, and they have the knife, okay? They have everything but the sacrifice. Everything but the sacrifice. So this has to be so weird from Isaac. He's got to be like, okay, well, we have the wood, we have the knife, and we have the fire. But where's the sacrifice? He's just got to be wondering, like, you just got to put yourself in his shoes and be like, where is his sacrifice that he keeps talking about? Like, what is it going to be? And like I said, they have everything but the actual sacrifice. And I wrote this in my notes. Isaac must have been thinking, dude, my dad is about to kill me. Like, what would you be thinking walking up a mountain with your dad in front or behind you, and you're carrying the wood, doing all this, doing all that, going up, probably complaining? I mean, personally, I would be complaining. That's just me, though. But, going up that mountain, that big mountain, and he's got the wood, he's got the fire, he's got the knife, everything but the sacrifice. And then let's read 7 and 8. Isaac spoke up and said to his father, Abraham, Father. Yes, my son, Abraham replied. The fire and the wood are here, Isaac said, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? Abraham answered, God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. And the 2 of them went on together. Wow. Let's unpack that real quick. Abraham knows that God told him to kill his son. So, you have to get his perspective too. Like, I'm about to kill my son. Like, I waited 25 years for this son that's going to start this big generation. And this generation to come and come. that are going to number the sand, the sand and the sea and the skies and the star. It's just going to, and I'm supposed to just kill it? Like, what must he been thinking? And then to reply to his son in a way where it's like, God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. He knew, and he had the faith that God would actually provide the lamb or the ram for the sacrifice or any other animal. He knew that God would actually provide that. But he knew that God told him to kill his son. So he was in this big predicament where it's like, well, I have to kill my son, but I know that he's going to provide a sacrifice. So what is this big predicament that he's in? And so wouldn't it just make sense for him just not to kill his son and just let him live? Because like I said, his son is a son that's going to father these generations and generations and generations. And then let's go to 11 and 13. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, Abraham, Abraham, here I am, he replied. Do not lay a hand on the boy, he said. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me, your son, your only son. God stopped Abraham as he was about to kill his own son. He had this much faith to where he was about to kill his own son that he had waited for so long. But he still had the faith to do it. And then God called out instantly like, hey, Abraham, stop. Don't do that. And then they looked over in the bushes and like, oh my gosh, it's a ram. The ram came in at the last moment because the Lord provided for Abraham. And I feel like this story perfectly resembles the story that we all know. The story of Jesus, which you shouted out earlier. And I have a few similarities. Are they on the board? No? Never mind. But I have a few, and I want to start. The long-awaited only son, like I've been talking about the whole time. That is in Genesis 17, 1 through 2. And we know Jesus, he's been this long-awaited only son as well. And then we have Isaac's side. He carried the wood up the mountain, which is in Genesis 22, 6, as we just read. And then Jesus, he carried the cross up the hill, which is in John 19, 7. And then Isaac, he was laid to be slain on Mount Moriah, just like Jesus was, as he was slain in the region of Mount Moriah. It's in the same, geographically, it's in the same mountain range. It's very close. And then what we also read in Genesis 22:4 is that it was a 3-day journey to the site of the mountain where Isaac was supposed to be slain. And it was same for Jesus, as he was 3 days in the tomb, which is in Matthew 16:21. But this is all cool, how it's so similar. You must be thinking, but no, it's completely different, because the end of the stories are totally polar opposite, on the opposite sides. Over here, we have Isaac's story, where he was sent to be slain, and he was supposed to get slain, but he never got slain. And then we have Jesus' story over here, where it's like, he was sent to be slain, but he was actually slain. And he gives us this freedom of gift of salvation that we can freely accept. And that's the polar opposites of it, but they're so similar at the same level. They're totally different, but yet the same thing. And then verse 14, which is what I think is probably the most important verse. So Abraham called that place, the Lord will provide. And to this day it is said, on the mountain of the Lord it will be provided. This is the whole thing. The Lord provided the sacrifice. And he provided everything for that sacrifice, except the sacrifice until the very end, which is what we read. He provided everything, like I said, the wood, the fire, the knife, everything but the actual sacrifice. And then he finally provided the sacrifice. Like the whole point of me being up here is to say these two words, Jehovah Jireh, the Lord will provide. The famous song that we all know, and it's also on Levi's shirt, funny enough. We didn't plan that out, but that's actually kind of cool. But the Lord will provide. He provided a sacrifice for Abraham when he was supposed to kill his only son that was promised to father these generations and generations that were supposed to be numbered until infinity. But he was sent to slain, but he never did. Because the Lord provided a ram. The Lord provided a ram. He provided everything for the sacrifice up until the very last moment where they realized they didn't have a sacrifice. And then the Lord provided the actual sacrifice. That's the whole point. God offers us everything we want. He offers us free salvation. He offers us whatever we want if we ask according to Him. So my whole point is, what will God not provide? What is the faith that you don't have to where you don't trust God that He will provide for it?